Happy Monday, everybody. It's the Bank Holiday Monday Club. This is a Monday that us on the usual Monday Club didn't like, because this is where all the part-timers come in for cheeky bar lunches when they've got days off. And no, when we've not been, when they're not plugging their work, it's an accepted day off, Russell, my man, how are you on this proud Easter afternoon?
I'm good, mate. I'm very well. I think it was all in all, it was a good weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed the Saturday shows. I think Saturday nights definitely went down a storm with the viewers as well. I thought it worked. I thought that even though there was 5 contributors, I thought Paul did a good job of getting us all a wee tuppence worth in, especially in the half-time broadcast, and there was only 15 minutes we had to get through 5 folk. But no, it was a good weekend, and I hope everyone's had a good Easter weekend as well. And obviously we'll get into the Celtic now.
We're getting into the Celtic. I watched Celtic against Glasgow City yesterday. A heavy defeat for Celtic yesterday against, well, what was it, 13 in a row champions, Glasgow City, and that. And you could see the difference between the teams, But there's still time yet for the Celtic to actually turn that round and hopefully win that league as well. I'm sure we'll be talking about that more during the week as well. Now, we wake up this morning, and after the rumours last week, we all thought we were going to get an announcement on a manager tomorrow. But it looks like we're going to get an announcement about Dom McKay, as we're going to christen him. Hiya, Dom, if you're watching. Who could arrive as early as tomorrow, and to get the project restart fired up. Now, there's two different threads to this story. It's either it's going to be a double announcement tomorrow morning. It'll be Dom McKay and Eddie Howe, or his first job is going to try to be to get Eddie Howe through the door, the Eddie Howe deal done. What's your thoughts on this development overnight?
I think we've obviously just been discussed on every single ACSOM the past few weeks. And obviously Laura had me panicking on Saturday when we started going through just how many players she thinks needs replaced in the squad. The rebuild is absolutely massive, is what I'm trying to say here. I don't believe that between Dom McKay arriving when he's meant to be, or what he was originally scheduled for, and that first Champions League qualifier is anywhere near enough time, Kev, when you consider how grand a scale we need to be doing this rebuild at. I think it's been, over sort of magnified is the word when you look at the fact that it's not only a manager change that's happening, and we do feel we're close to that now, but you're looking at Scott Brown's news a couple of weeks ago, the captain's leaving. You're looking at the head of recruitment, Nick Hammond, or football operations, whatever his title was, he's going as well. I just wonder, I know what you're hinting at there is Dom McKay in to get the Howe deal over the line. I'd be pretty concerned if they're needing that to be the case, like him to get it over the line. I think whatever Eddie Howe's been sort of after in these negotiations, Celtic should be delivering on that. It doesn't take an idiot to realise we're in desperate need of a top drawer manager, and he's as good as we could get out there, you know what I mean? So I think I wouldn't be surprised if both are announced this week. I think it feels like the wheels are very much in motion on the Howe deal. And last night's, as much as it came as a surprise, I think you take a step back and you look at just how big a rebuild job is required and how much work needs to be done. The Six Nations are now out the way, and you come, big man. Do you know what I mean?
Truthfully, for myself, I would rather it would be the director of football or Howe. It's getting announced tomorrow, because for me, the chief executive should be nothing to do with the football side of things. I didn't want, as soon as Dominic McKay comes in, I didn't want to hear him. Apart from the first couple of weeks, I didn't want to hear him being linked with anything to do with players, football, whatsoever. I only really want to hear him be talking about sponsorship, fan engagement, stuff like that. Yeah. Our chief executive should never be getting involved in the stuff that the chief executive has been getting involved in. The only people I want to hear talking about Dom McKay is the supporters groups, the fans. Mm-hmm. With the engagement point of view, I didn't want to hear Dom McKay mentioned in anything that's today with transfers or anything like that. I can understand why he's maybe coming in, but I don't think it is as important as getting a manager or a director of football. if you were asking me, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to ask, see, I've got a £2 coin here, I'm holding it up to the camera for those who are listening later on. I've got a £2 coin here. And if I was putting that £2 coin on a bet, my bet at the moment would be Eddie Howe not being Celtic manager this week. The reason being, I was one of the people that Laura was talking about being underwhelmed. And the reason I was underwhelmed was because right away, both parties seem to be on different pages. Right away, there seems to be different ideas of how they're going to take the club forward. And what Tony Haggerty actually says on Friday was perfect. So the stories that are in the papers, doesn't matter what papers are in, these journalists have worked to get these stories. So there's like a good base to these stories. So the first red line for me was the fact is Eddie Howe wants to bring in his own technical director. And it's virtually, as far as we're concerned, a done deal that Celtic are going to bring in Fergal Harkin from Man City. Now, I didn't know the ifs and buts. I don't know the job profiles and that. But for me, for a wee simple guy for Stirling, they seem like they're going to do the same job, a director of football and a technical director. You've then got the scout, seemingly Mark Burchell, going to come in. And already one of the stuff that's been leaked as well, that Fergal Harkin wants full control of the scouting department. So right away, Eddie Howe's gone, I didn't want this guy coming in as director of football, or as it seems, as the rumours seem, coming in and going, I don't want this guy, I want my own guy in, and I want another guy to come in and deal with the scouting. You've then got the rumour that he's quite happy to keep John Kennedy and
Gavin
Stratton, couldn't remember his name there. And I'm going, why would you want to come in and keep your own coaching staff? For me, it's like we've went to the car showroom and we're going to pay £70,000 for a top of the range Range Rover. Then we drive it straight out the showroom, across the road, into Home Bargains to get the mats for it. That's what it seems like we're doing for the outset. If Eddie Howe is your man, you've got to let him control who he's going to bring in. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you make some valid points, Kev. I mean, I think you've got to remember as well, the order that we wanted this process to be done was that we approached the director of football first and then we went for the manager. And perhaps, that's the right way to do it. Perhaps it's not. The difference being, I think Eddie Howe is such a big catch, and we've not actually got the director of football as such hired yet. Is he right to be, pushing one of his own forward for the role? Is he quite entitled to do that? I think he probably is. I don't necessarily mean disagreements or different ideas need to mean conflict. I wouldn't go too far into that road as of yet. I don't think, it may well just be this is what happens when you've got two clever, intelligent, different mindsets on something or different ideas. They need to be debated and need to be ironed out. As for the coaching staff one, though, I've got to agree there. I find that one baffling. I think if Eddie Howe had got the job when Neil Lennon got the job, we might have been more understanding to it. Do you know what I mean? If some of the coaching staff had stayed, it's just, it's been we're on course for a treble at that point. Do you know what I mean? We've won 7 in a row by then. I just feel that when you've had a season like this happen, the wheels have completely came off. And from 19 set plays, I think we've conceded goals from, and all these sort of wee different aspects of it. From the fitness, players looking like, second half they fade away, from the shape being 3 number 10s in the formation and things like that, one up top at home to Falkirk. I feel for me, in a season that's been a complete disaster, you really do want a clearing of the decks, do you know what I mean, in the coaching sort of side of things. And if that means someone like John Kennedy's unlucky on that front, so be it. You just sometimes life can be like that, do you know what I mean? Life can be tough, and sometimes John Kennedy might be going, look, I was there for 6 title wins, 1 bad season and you're getting rid of me. Sometimes that's just what's required, though. I am a wee bit concerned as to why both Gavin Strachan and John Kennedy would be kept on after the season that we've had, especially when you're looking at Eddie Howe bringing in Richard Hughes as opposed to and pushing back in the Fergal Harkin one. I get that more because Richard Hughes is somebody he's worked with at length at Bournemouth. I think they played together as well as working in an off-field capacity together. Whereas you're looking at these two coaches, you didn't know them from Adam. They've been as part of the problem. They've been a big part of the problem, whether we like it or not, and whether Kennedy's came over very well in his interviews, and I actually think he has, to be fair to him. I think he spoke really well. He seems like a smart football man. He's got a good demeanour about him. But at the end of the day, he is labelled with what has been losing the 10, and not just losing it by a country mile. I was surprised at that story, but then again, you need to ask: is that based on any real fact? Is it just rumour? I don't know.
Well, now, we'll have to say it's rumour just now. Gary Miller comes in for Facebook. These rumours are purely press generated. They were running with Keane last week. Well, that was maybe your fault, actually. They were running with Keane. A few of Howe's past staff are still under contract elsewhere. I'm going to go back to what Anthony Haggerty says on Friday, and Anthony Haggerty knows more about the press than what me and Russell do, sitting here boiling rubbish on a Monday. He knows that the press wouldn't have run with these stories if they hadn't got them verified from numerous sources. So we have to say that, yes, we have to say that there's some basis in these rumours, and there doesn't seem to be an awful lot of guesswork. Brian Conway, 60, commenting via Twitter, also says, how can appoint his own director of football? If he leaves and takes the director of football with him, then we're back at square one.
Valid point.
That is a very valid point, and this is where I'm getting that we're on different pages right away. That's if Richard Hughes is going to be doing the same job as Fergal Harkin, which we don't know because none of us have been seen the job profile, what it actually contains. We don't know what it actually contains. I don't know what a technical director does. I don't know I don't know the difference between a technical director and a director of football. But from me looking in, they seem to do the exact same job. When you look at other clubs, I mean, people could say maybe Hughes and Harkin can work together. Is that you just setting yourself up for conflict there because you've got two guys basically doing the same job in the football club? Celtic have tried to control who they're going to appoint, and they've done this for years. They've done the fitting the jigsaw together for years. What was it? John Paul called it Cilla Black. We've been doing the blind date for years, setting people up, and it hasn't worked. Maybe we should have tried Paddy McGuinness rather than Cilla Black. But it's quite obvious that Howe's got his own mind, and that's what we wanted. That was one of the reasons that we gave Neil Lennon a bit of a hard time as well. So he's came in and he says, "I want these guarantees." So for me, if I'm just throwing it wildly out there, when I saw this morning that it looks like tomorrow Dom McKay's arrival is going to be announced to the stock exchange between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, I was going, well, is this to try and get Howe through the door? Has he already got to come in and do a salvage operation to bring it in? Or am I going to look foolish at 7:45 tomorrow morning when both of them are announced? I'm going to be all right then. But we don't know at this point. We really don't know at this point. The only one that's probably guaranteed at this point is Dom McKay coming in tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, there's two angles to that. It might just be an insistence, on Howe's part, whilst he's making demands that he wants to work with the new CEO from the get-go, as opposed to, for the first, if he's taken over the now, working with someone else who's not going to be there. It might well be that's one of his other stipulations. We just don't know. I thought it was surprising the story came out so late last night that Dom McKay's coming in earlier. But as I say, when I took a step back, I just feel that it does make sense to get him down to work as soon as possible, no matter what that entails. Do you know what I mean? And as you say, we don't have the job spec and all that, but I think there's a multitude of reasons to be getting the CEO in, getting his feet under the desk as early as possible. And the main number one being, I mean, I'm a football fan, do you know what I mean? I didn't really know that much about off the ball stuff and all that nonsense. But for me, it's Champions League and making sure we are as best equipped as possible to qualify for the Champions League via a very difficult journey at the end of this summer. It's going to be really, really hard because it's not the Champions route process that we're used to. I don't think it's an extra qualifier. I think it's the same amount of qualifiers, but tougher opposition. And for me, you know, the earlier you can get that team off the field all put together, the better.
I'm laughing when you say tougher opposition there, Russell, because
it wouldn't be hard.
Because we've been packed out with some crap over the last couple of years. So getting tougher opposition, or I suppose tougher route, might actually be better for us at that time. If Howe comes in this week, tomorrow, it could well be that Kennedy and Stratton are just interim to the end of the season to get him in, get him there, get him over the line. Give him a bit of insight of what's been happening in the dressing room. But then, for what, again, rumours, what we've been reading is Howe has been doing his due diligence. And there was one of the Celtic websites ran with the story that he was offered the job in November and knocked it back because of what Brendan Rodgers told him. And Brendan Rodgers basically says to him, do not take the job when the current CEO's there, because you won't get it all your own way.
Wow.
And that was the reason that Eddie Howe didn't take the job in November.
Wow.
So
I didn't read that.
So obviously, I mean, that's just a massive rumour. That is a massive rumour. But if Eddie Howe's been doing his due diligence for a number of months, which it sounds like he has been, knowing that this job offer is going to come, then you would like to think that he's been watching the Celtic games. Well, I know for a fact that he probably will have been watching the Celtic games for a few months. So he'll know this squad, what he's coming into. A couple of weeks ago, Russell, you lost a couple of hundred Twitter followers when you were driving the Roy Keane bus. And are you fully on board with the Eddie Howe bus?
100%, man. 100%. I mean, I think the Roy Keane was on my bus, Kev. I've tried to tell everyone this. He was in the passenger seat, mate. It was me driving the bus. Roy Keane was just allowed on it. But as for Eddie Howe, I mean, folk might know, I don't know if folk, you know, it's different viewers now, but I spoke about Eddie Howe back in January on Paul's show. I think I'd watched all his documentaries over one weekend and I was pretty buzzed up at the process there. So that's never left. I just wanted to make a case for Keane because we thought actually at one point you looked at that was very close to getting over the line, such as the rumour mills that we have to operate in for a daily podcast. Do you know what I mean? Got to talk about something and you've got to give as many angles on it as you can. But for Eddie Howe, for me, I mean, he ticks all the boxes. I actually went back in and watched his coach's voice. I watched a wee bit of that again last night. He talks about the game really well. I mean, I certainly think it's sad that, you know, you've got to be so methodical and talk players to every single phase of play and every pass that they make. But that is just the modern player right now, and he definitely gets it. I'll be interested to see if any of the players, the supposed 6 that wanted out, and one's left already, right? I'd be interested to see if any of the other 5 change their mind on the basis that Eddie Howe comes in once they've met him. I certainly think Celtic, judging by the amount of players that we're talking about leaving, could be doing with that. I think he should be identifying those he thinks are trying to make moves to the exit door, find out the reasons why, and analyse whether there's any possibility of them staying or extending their stay if they've only got a year left, because there's no point in keeping them if they've only got a year left. Find out if there's any reasons of extending, and let Eddie Howe kind of be the key selling point for the players. Let him tell them his vision for the club, because, you know, he quite clearly gets boards of directors excited. As Tony Haggett was talking about, this guy has been heavily high up on the shortlist for the England job for numerous years now. Arsenal looked at him, things like that. This guy is an impressive character by all accounts. And as I say, I only have my experiences from watching his interviews on the YouTube videos, -17 and the coach's voice, 2 things he's done, and he is impressive. And I would just give him the room with the player and the agent, or just the player preferably, and let him sell his vision for Celtic over the next 3, 4, 5 years or whatever, and see if we can get any of these guys to change their mind. That could be quite an interesting one. I wanted to ask you, do you think he would come in straight away this season? Or do you think he would be announced to start his job at the end of the season? And obviously he'll be doing all the off-field managerial stuff before the end of the campaign, but not actually in charge of the first 11. And do you think that's why Kennedy and Strachan might stay?
I really don't know. That thought has been rattling about my head all weekend, going, would he come in right away or would he wait to the end of the season? Would he want linked with this disastrous season? Would he want any sort of... I mean, he would get an awful lot of leeway. If he comes in this week, he's going to get a lot of leeway from now to the end of the season with the Celtic fans, because he's just coming in to oversee stuff. What would it do to the players? I mean, the players have chucked it. Basically, the players have chucked it for months. So you're talking about guys who might stay. I think it's very... Eddie's not going to stay. He's made up his mind. He's already looking for condos in Leicester. That's guaranteed. Is there any other player? Ryan Christie stay? Would Ayer stay for another season? As you say, it depends if Howe can come in and have a word with him. But when it gets to June and he's coming in, it's then maybe a bit late to have that conversation with the players. And maybe that's what Celtic are realising now. Yeah. And they're going to try and get whoever it is in before the end of the season, full well that us as a support are intelligent enough to actually not blame him for the absolute snowstorm that has been this season. But then again, the guy might want to step back. The guy might want to have a look from the outside and keep an outsider's view rather than going in. But I've watched a couple of things that you've watched, as I say, and that I've watched a few of the videos that you mentioned there, the documentaries and that stuff. I would see Howe wanting to get in. If he didn't want to take the job in November, if he gets certain guarantees, I think he would want to get in before the end of the season and start bringing in a culture to the club from now until so he can have a decent run at pre-season. Because how many games we've got left? 5 games left, and hopefully numerous in the Scottish Cup. So he can come in and start having a look. Get his hands dirty. Come in and get his hands dirty. Then maybe make the decision on guys like Kennedy and Stratton in the close season. But I would really want him in. If he's going to come in, I can't see the point is announcing him coming in and I'm not coming in right away. I get you there. That's my long-winded answer, but I can see I can see both sides. I can actually see both sides.
Aye, because it's one of those ones that you don't want them getting off to a negative start, and these players have done nothing this season, Kev, to make you think that they're just suddenly going to have a turn of form in the big occasion with obviously a certain cup draw that's been made now in 2 weeks as well. And you're not wanting all this momentum we're building with the potential of Eddie Howe taking over. You're not wanting that. I don't think it would smash it to smithereens by any extent, but you don't want it even slowing down a wee tiny bit because of a defeat, that could potentially happen at Ibrox. I think we need to be realistic and accept that there is a chance that can happen. I'm Mr. Positivity, as you know, but even I can hold my hands up and say these guys have done nothing this season to warrant my faith that they're just in 2 weeks' time gonna go over there and get us through to the next round. Now, that's not a good start for Eddie Howe if that was the case. I don't think you would get too much of the flack, don't get me wrong, but it's still just whatever. It does slow down the momentum, whether you like it or not. It makes the other games seem like total dead rubbers as well. Whereas if he was to go there and win, suddenly the league games take on a greater importance because it's players vying for their spot in the latter cup rounds as well. Do you know what I mean? And it all just spices it up a wee bit again. My worry is, though, if he doesn't take over, right, if he doesn't get his hands dirty, as you say, he could look a bit cowardly. And it could be like if say we did go out in the cup or whatever, well, what's he doing up in the stands? Do you know what I mean? When he could have been there, he could have got us something different. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword right now. personally, I would rather see just if fans can be level-headed enough not to panic if it doesn't pan out the rest of the season perfectly. Do you know what I mean? Not to start making silly judgments and starting to worry a bit too much and start putting too much doubt in this guy. If you can get the fans all on board and be level-headed about it as a huge majority, then I would suggest, that if we think we can get him in, get him in.
It's what we call the dead cat bounce. If you bring him in and he lifts the training to a higher level than what it's been, because me and you have been quite honest, we think the players are coasting for now at the end of the season. We think the players are. Even after the cup draw yesterday, they might still be coasting in the league games for now at the end of the season. But knowing full well that they're bringing in a manager and the manager comes in, then some of them who are going to be about next season might up their game a bit. They might go, I need to start impressing here because this guy is basically judging us. This guy is on the training ground now judging us, now having a look at us. And it could well be that it's just in an overseeing capacity, whereas for the first couple of weeks, Kennedy and Stratton are still basically in charge, but Howe's in the background. Alex Burrows in the comments, and he says, too much negativity, guys, ifs and buts, I'm out. Well, unfortunately, Alex, all we've got is ifs and buts because nothing's been set in stone, nothing's been engraved, nothing's been signed. So we have to deal with ifs and buts at this
Well, we were just comparing the two potential avenues that could happen if he takes over now or if he doesn't. That's basically it. If you want to hear the other alternative, he takes over this week, we win all the rest of our league games, we hump Rangers at Ibrox, and we win the Scottish Cup. There we go, we're sorted.
I know. We'll have to deal with ifs and buts because nothing is set in stone at this precise moment in time. Now, if he wants negativity, I'm going to give him 5 minutes of negativity now, and I'm going to say I'm not fully on board the Howe bus. I'm not fully on board that. As I've said earlier in the broadcast, I see too many red lines right away appearing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So today, Chris Commons, and we spoke about Chris Commons and Screamer Celica last week,
No.
So Chris Commons, and I think he writes for the Daily Mail, I'm not 100% sure who he writes for. He basically says, Eddie Howe is not the Messiah, he's basically a naughty boy. And what he does is he compares Eddie Howe to, what's his name? Brendan Rodgers. I couldn't even remember Brendan Rodgers' name there, man. He compares Howe to Brendan Rodgers. And for me, he makes a decent point. And this is one of my red lines that I had flashing up. I think Brendan Rodgers had a better CV than Eddie Howe because of the clubs that he's worked with. Brendan Rodgers was the manager of Liverpool, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Brendan Rodgers knew how to handle a big club. And this is no disrespect to Bournemouth, but even Eddie Howe would actually admit that Bournemouth is not Celtic Football Club. It's not Celtic Football Club. Eddie Howe is going to become under a scrutiny that he's never known has actually existed. He's going to come into a club where the demands are far, far bigger than what he's ever experienced in Bournemouth. He's never managed a European game either. I've got a lot of red lines about Eddie Howe, but he does tick a lot of my boxes. He's young. He's got a habit of developing young players. He's a progressive coach. But the third one, it doesn't tick as a European box. The European box is still an unknown for me. But I'm not going to go back on what I said and what I put in that WhatsApp group chat. I fear Tony Mowbray. I see Tony Mowbray in him. And that is my gut instinct. My gut instinct is I see Tony Mowbray. And I can't shake it.
Really?
And I can't shake it just now until I see his interview or see him there.
I get what you mean. I think the one thing that's often overlooked, sometimes having a bad spell can be good as well. And I think the Burnley spell will have stood him in good stead. He actually went back to Bournemouth and was even better manager when he went back to Bournemouth for that sort of difficult spell that he had there. I think it was 18 months, 20 months he was there or something. I think having negative experience in your CV was important for Brendan Rodgers as well. I think when you look at the Premier League record, though, I think you're right in the sense that being in charge of Liverpool undoubtedly, Kev, gives you insight into what it's like at the big boys table, right? So he knows what demands are of fans when it's winning every game. He knows what crazy scrutiny is like. Do you know what I mean? He knows what it's like to have all the media looking at your every wrong move as well as your every right move and things like that. And you don't get the same at Bournemouth. But you've got to look at the numbers as well. 545 games this guy's been in charge of now at all levels of football. That is an astonishing amount of games for 43 years old. And that does give you a lot of experience in different types of situations. One of them being falling out of the whole Football League as a whole because they were on minus points when he took over. That's an incredible amount of pressure to be under for your first managerial job as well. He dealt with it. In fact, he absolutely blew it out the park. I think they're keeping them in the Premier League splashed with a ninth place finish as well. 5 seasons in there with Bournemouth, who have less season ticket holders than Aberdeen. Again, different type of pressure because obviously the remit is just to stay up. So I get that. Do you know what I mean? He's not getting hounded if he loses 3-0 to Manchester United or something like that. Old Trafford, nobody cares really. Do you know what I mean? Whereas you don't get that at Celtic. However, you look at Celtic's record in Europe, and it's very interesting to bring up the fact he's not got any European pedigree. But he never had a Premier League pedigree when he took Bournemouth in there for 5 years. Never managed a Premier League game in his life. And I wonder if he could look at Celtic as being Bournemouth in the Champions League. Like Celtic in the Champions League to what Bournemouth were going into the Premier League, knowing that we're rank outsiders, because I'm really sorry if folk get offended by that. That is how it is. I mean, Celtic now have fallen miles away from the big table in Europe because of abject performances in the qualifiers. But I wonder if he thinks the underdog card in Europe might be quite akin to what he achieved in the Premier League with Bournemouth. And if that's the case, then we're in for one hell of a 5-year spell because, it may well work like that. And sometimes it's good that if he's never been in Europe before, he's going to stick to his guns. He's going to play it the only way he knows how. See what I did there? And I didn't mean that. And I think that could be a good thing. It could be quite exciting watching him in Europe and seeing how he does.
Right. What I'm pointing out is the red lines that I've got.
Sure.
The red lines that I've got there. And I would have massive red lines with Roy Keane. I would have massive red lines with everybody par Rafa Benitez, truthfully. And I will be truthful with that. And it's out of all the candidates that are there, Eddie Howe by far is the best candidate out there. And I'm not going to disagree with anybody. I'm not going to disagree with that. But for me, he's not the same level as Brendan Rodgers was when Brendan Rodgers came here. Brendan Rodgers had more experience dealing with the ins and outs of a big club.
Sure. But it's not Brendan Rodgers we're hiring either.
No, it's not. Brendan Rodgers type's not available. Brendan Rodgers type's not available to come to us. So all the runners and riders who were available, Howe was by far the outstanding candidate.
And therefore, we have to get just as excited, Kev, about that, because that is still the equivalent of Rodgers in the sense that it's the number one candidate available to us and we're going to get him. That, for me, creates the same level of excitement within me as what getting Rodgers was, albeit I take your point, Rodgers' CV probably does slightly shade it, but there's arguments for and against that as well, which I've heard.
I mean, it's, as I says, Howe ticks an awful lot of the boxes. He ticks an awful lot of the boxes for me. But again, I have got Kashmir Mega Elixir comes in, red flags. I'm going to stick with red lines because I've been saying because I've been saying it now for 15 minutes. So I didn't know what to say.
I thought maybe red lines was a saying I'd never heard of.
I'm going to stick with red lines, man. May as well continue being contrarian, But I think I'm right to bring up my doubts. I brought up my doubts about Neil Lennon as soon as he was appointed, and I'm going to bring up my doubts about Howe as soon as he appointed. That doesn't mean to say that I'm not going to fully back him if he does get the gig. I want him to actually be really successful, and I'm very glad that the board seem to have pushed the boat out and at least spoke to him. And it looks like he is the number one candidate for the job. And if all goes well, tomorrow morning he will be Celtic manager, whether it is at the start of the season or the end of this season or the start of next season, he will be. And I will fully back him up. He seems like a great development coach. There's been some comments come in that he says he never brought a youth player through at Bournemouth. I can't check that out. But for me, he's a progressive young coach is what I wanted for Celtic. But that's not to say, even if we were bringing in a Jesse Marsh or somebody like that, or a Jody Marsh or whatever his name is, I would still have red lines. I would still have doubts about... What I'm trying to say is, with my gut instinct, right? My gut instinct, when we announced Brendan Rodgers, I was up there. I was completely stealing, going, this is going to be a success. I'm 100% know this is going to be a success. With Eddie Howe, I haven't got that feeling. I am underwhelmed at this precise moment in time, and he doesn't need to win me over. He's not going to care about me. I can hee-haw about football. I know nothing about football. He doesn't need to win me over, but I'm just really interested to actually see what he's going to bring to Celtic if he's announced the manager. So, Kev, who's your number one choice? Benitez. Benitez every day of the week. He would be my number one choice, would be Benitez. Of anybody on the list is extremely difficult. Of anybody that's on the bookmakers list, which is extremely obvious. I'm going to say Jack Ross for a laugh. No, I'm not. As I say, I think I've made it quite clear Howe's outstanding candidate on the list.
Where those going?
Oh, here we go. I'm getting left. I thought it was Jack Ross. Well, basically Jack Ross. When I say Jack Ross, I thought we were going to go the cheap option based on whatever was going through my head at that time. But he's back.
Oh, that's my stupid flat, mate. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's all good.
Derek Eccles, Benitez not a chance. The only other beside Howe would be Ralph Rangnick. I think Ralph Rangnick again would be a good choice, but for me, Ralph Rangnick was more a choice for the director of football role, and I would have let him appoint a coach.
Yeah, that's fair.
Jed Sweeney says, "Hold on, Kev, you wanted Jack Ross." I never wanted Jack Ross. What I actually says was I expected it to be Jack Ross. So there's a bit of a difference. I can I'm getting it tight today, but I'm just being honest. Archduke 8199 says it's Roy Keane at the door. Was it Roy Keane at the door?
I can't tell you that. I can't disclose
it. So you're fully on the Eddie Howe bus then?
Definitely. I think it's an exciting time. I think out of all the candidates as well, I know you're saying you're feeling underwhelmed, but I think if you looked at 99% of the fans, I think they are very much going to be united behind it, which is such a great advantage to start with. As much as I was trying to be positive about Roy Keane, I cannot deny that there was always going to be a divide in the support from day one, which isn't ideal. Do you know what I mean? I think right now he's got someone who's going to unify 99% of the fans, and thinking that we can believe that we're onto something special here. I think he's going to totally get the Celtic thing. I think as well, one thing about his CV and Rodgers' CV, when you were making that comparison earlier, the one thing we knew about Brendan Rodgers' CV is he didn't hang about long. I think his longest stint had been, 2.5, 3 years at Swansea. All the rest of the place, I think it was included with about 200 days or something at Reading, or Watford, or one of the two. He wasn't at clubs long. And anyone, shocked and stunned that he was actually angling to get out after 2 seasons at Celtic hadn't done their homework, really, when you look at his CV. The one thing you would say about Howe is he gets described as a really short stint at Burnley. Actually, he was there about 20 months. I think it was 18 months, 20 months. Now, considering he was unhappy pretty much from day one because of other stuff going on in his life, he still obviously tried to stick that out. Do you know what I mean? He obviously still gave it as much as he possibly could. Now, he then goes back to Bournemouth and is there for what, a further 6 seasons, 7 seasons? If not longer, I can't remember. You know, I would like to think if he's went there with that sort of long-term project in mind, that could be really, really good for us as well. I appreciate if someone huge comes knocking on the door that, you know, you can lose your manager, but that you're in that risk with everyone that you appoint. Do you know what I mean? That's just a fact. I would like to think if he's coming in, he's impressing so much because he's comparing his Bournemouth spell. As I say, he wants to make Celtic in the Champions League what Bournemouth are like in the Premier League and actually compete. And he also is saying, when I come to a club, I'm going to completely take it all in. I'm going to stay here for a serious period of time, unless obviously you sack me in that point of time. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I hope he's here for the long haul. Do you know what I mean? Because that would be really a really good start.
It would be a really good start, and I hope that within a year that he's getting touted for jobs, because if within a year he's getting touted for jobs, then he's done a job at Celtic.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line, and this is where we are in a transition period, and we are going to be, and I fucking can't talk today. We are in a transition period, right? And it's a mass. So if Howe comes in, what you've got to say is the board have ticked a lot of his boxes. The board have says, right, you're going to get X amount. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So you're going to think that he's going to get the backing. And if he gets the full backing, then you've got to hope that he brings success. Once whoever is paraded as the Celtic manager, I'm going to be fully behind. I'm going to be fully behind them. I'm going to be in these. I'm going to be in the stands, like cheering them on, and they will get my full backing, and I will be extremely positive when I need to be. But at the moment, because of all the uncertainty, all the ifs and buts, I'm like, I've still got doubts. I really still have doubts. But I've got doubts about everybody on the list. But I will actually say is Eddie Howe is by far the best candidate on the list.
Okay. I think as well, what did you make of him? Because it seems to be widely documented now that he did indeed turn down Sheffield United. Now, Sheffield United are owned by a crazy wealthy owner. They're going to the Championship, the parachute payments from the Premier League of circa £80 million, I think it is. They're going to get backed by the owner anyway. To me, he knows that league inside out. He's going to have loads of money to spend, and then back in the Premier League with a year. I think if he's turning that down for Celtic, then don't get me wrong, we're 10 times bigger club than Sheffield United, don't get me wrong. But he's not got experience of that. He does have experience of the English game. He knows that he'll get paid weekly, and he knows what bonus he'll get for getting him in the Premier League again. I think it was actually a really positive sign that he's turned him down. First, from just a football point of view, that you'd like to think that means he sees Celtic as, you know, as we all do, as a far bigger club than Sheffield United. You know what I mean? Geez, oh. But secondly, I would like to think that means that the Celtic package that's on offer, actually, as you just said there, is ticking these boxes that he's after being ticked, which suggests to me he will be back. Again, ifs, buts and maybes, but there's some positive ifs, buts and maybes, Kev, you know?
It could also be that he doesn't fancy another crack at the Championship. This is something new, exciting to him, and he knows everything that I've flagged up. He knows that himself, and he's going, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'm going to prove what's getting says about me. I want to have a go at Europe. I want to have a go at a team that dominates the ball. I want to play nice attacking football. I mean, let's have a look at this. If Howe is an utter success up here, he's a legend. It will be the greatest club that he's ever managed it. And it will be the greatest club that he'll ever manage it if he is a success. So who wouldn't want that job? And I've said that for months. I've said that for months, that the Celtic job is extremely attractive to any manager if they've got the right state of mind. And at what is looking like that Eddie Howe does have the right state of mind to actually take the Celtic job. And the Celtic board have done a great job selling it to him.
Yep. 100%, I agree. I mean, that's two real positive signs as well. And it's not to dwell on the past, but you only need to look at the predecessor and how they were hired and how that all came about. And really, realistically, when you're saying it's an attractive job for any manager, how then could it have been Neil Lennon was the right guy for that when, quite clearly he is not this number one choice that we were just referring to there when talking about Rodgers and Howe. I mean, when you're bringing in Neil Lennon in between those two names, you think, where was that coming from? So I think it's fantastic to see that has been it's been a mistake. It's been made, but we're learning from it. That's a good thing, 100% a good thing. We're entering a new era where we've got new CEO potentially now coming in, it looks like on Tuesday, 3 months early. It looks like there'll be a new manager announced the next couple of weeks. And obviously we know there's either going to be a technical director, a director of football, or both. And all these signs for me are really positive.
They're really positive, and we need to actually put this season behind us, and it looks like we are going to learn by the mistakes. I remember saying for the last 3 or 4 years, that our club's shambolically run, and they are shambolically run, and I think that's not now getting proved with the amount of restructuring that's going to happen within the next couple of months. That we realise it's time for change. If Eddie Howe comes in, and say Eddie Howe had subscribed to Premier Sports the other night there, who would he have been impressed with watching our game against Falkirk?
No, I think David Turnbull's the one that comes to mind straight away. It was one of those performances where once we got the first goal, I did feel the shackles came off. I said on the pod, I thought we started up with the lineup, one up front at home to Falkirk's a negative sign. But I thought from the game, I mean, to me, David Turnbull's got to be the guy that he's looking at building the whole midfield around, Kev. I think he's got to be, not even the whole midfield, the whole team around. I know Cal McGregor's been there a lot longer and things like that, but Cal McGregor has to be, for me, the ticking engine for David Turnbull making things happen for Celtic. Do you know what I mean? I think that's how that midfield has to work. And if it is going to be Soro, then you wonder when they're going to start putting their faith back in him again between now and the end of the season as well. I understand the points about, you can't win cups on sentimentality for Scott Brown. I think that's more of a fan selling point rather than the actual team doing it. But I think with Scott Brown, he has to be performing a heck of a lot better than Soro in training, and he has to be at better fitness levels than Soro. And do you know what I mean? He has to tick all the normal boxes that you tick to get selected in the team. If that's the case still right now, then Soro might find himself struggling to become a first team regular. Do you know what I mean? Because now's the time for him to be playing. If he's not shown enough, then I'd be surprised at that. The flip side being, it may well just be, as I say, it's came at the two of them. You've got to pick one. And Scott Brown's ahead of him right now in the pecking order, but that's no bad thing on Soro. But I think, in answer to your question, I think David Turnbull's the guy that Eddie Howe would have watched and thought, that's who we need to bring build the team over. I see the comment coming in with Jamesy Forrest. Definitely. I mean, he's going to be key. I always feel as well with Jamesy Forrest and Ryan Christie, there's a bit of a similarity in both of their likelihoods of them taking 3 shots per game. I happen to think, though, that James Forrest picks and chooses his moments a hell of a lot better than Ryan Christie. That would just be my take on it. And I think James Forrest, having been removed from the team, and I think it might be the same if Christie is to leave this summer, you might find out just how much you miss Christie. I don't know. I mean, he does my head, and right now I'm not bothered. But I think with Forrest at times, he's been taken for granted big style by a lot of the Celtic fans. And I'll hold my hands up and say, including myself, probably at times as well.
Definitely. I like Forrest, but he is frustrating. He's a winger. He's a wide player.
They're very been away, I suppose.
They're either on fire or they're not on fire. But when he moved out wide the other night, he actually made John Joe Kenny have a decent game in the second half, because Kenny had somebody in front of him that was cutting inside, and you could actually see that having a winger in front of Kenny made him probably have his best game. I agree with you with David Turnbull. David Turnbull's the only reason that you can watch Celtic over the last couple of months. He's got vision, he's got skill, he's graceful on the ball, and the way Eddie Howe likes to play football, I think the team will get built around David Turnbull. It'll be interesting to actually see. I mean, he did speak about on Saturday night about the loan players that are there. How many of the loan players would you keep?
It's a crazy question because it's so difficult to answer. I mean, I've got a hunch. I've got a feeling on one of them. I don't know if he will get. I don't know if he'll be kept. But I've got an unpopular opinion that I actually think Laxalt's the best at the lot. Right, that's my honest opinion. I think he's a proper player who we've just watched depreciate. You know, in a season that's been a landslide, and will probably cost him getting the chance to come here. But he's one of those folk. You wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to Milan or maybe to another Champions League team, and we end up playing against them in a qualifiers on the group stage, and we think, wow, he's a proper player. He's the one that if you had to give me a choice, who would I keep? That would be the one I would keep. For me, John Joe Kenny's done exactly what John Kennedy's done, and he's just played it safe from the moment he's been given the opportunity at Celtic. I think there's probably a lot more to go from Kenny. And I agree with you. I thought second half he showed that, and perhaps it was down to the shape. And once he had someone in front of him, he felt he had more of an insurance policy to get forward. But we've not seen nearly enough of that from him. Whereas with Laxalt, I think at times Laxalt's actually been guilty of trying to do too much. I think there was at one point, even on Saturday, you found him sort of in front of our own box, but on the right hand side, collecting the ball and passing it back. Once he passed it, he sort of started then running back over to the left. You thought he pops up everywhere, him at times. I would like to think that's someone more taking responsibility or trying to do too much out of genuine desire than I would Headless Chicken. I certainly don't think he's like that. He's got one hell of a CV as well, Laxalt. El Yunusi's the unlucky one because his numbers are good. 15 goals again this season when he's been in and out the team. And as I've said before, I think he's been played, folk forgetting, numerous positions over the 2 years he's been at Celtic. He's played as a striker, he's played in the hole, he's played as a false nine, he's played left wing. There's no doubts about that. He's probably played right wing at some point. I can't think off the top of my head when, but it wouldn't surprise you. And 15 goals is a good return in a side that struggled. There's no two ways about it. I just wonder though if with £5 million, I mean, realistically, what's Celtic's budget going to be this summer? Is any of these loan players, if they're all looking at around, they're going to cost the £5 million mark? Are any of them going to get such a chunk of your transfer kitty used up on? I don't think so.
I'm going to put this out there. I may as well have been absolutely brutal today, so I may as well put out another arrow to the moon, another arrow that'll probably burn as I try to hit the moon with it. I reckon the three loan players that played the other night, Moy, Kenny and Laxalt, two of them will at least come back. I probably agree Laxalt will be one of them. And I think,
again.
Aye, and I think Moy will come back as well. I think we will sign Moy permanently.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, it's fair.
I do think we will. For the £5 million that's quoted, I think if Eddie Howe comes in, he'll have a look and go, Moy is worth that money. Because he'll look at the analytics. He will look at the analytics and he will go, right, we're going to lose Eddie. Lee Griffiths doesn't look up to it. Aietti's going to need to has got a lot to prove. And are we really going to give away 15 goals when we're losing 21 goals? And
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm going to bring in. I reckon Laxalt and Moy will still be Celtic players next season.
Yeah, Laxalt, I think there's a good chance he would do another loan deal. I think Laxalt actually, the vibe I get is he enjoys it, and one of the reasons for that, of course, was his infamous slip of the tongue last week when he'd said, about Eddie. No, Tuesday or something. He said Tuesday, we meet him on Tuesday. I don't know if the video was edited or whatever.
It was.
But you know what I loved about it? Was he sitting there playing his game and he's doing his streaming live in a Celtic top. I thought that's brilliant. Do you know what I mean? That's you never see that now. They're all which fair enough. You wouldn't cut about in your overalls. Do you know what I mean? When you finished your work, it's his work gear. But I just thought, I wonder if he's actually maybe kind of a bit of a fan. And we've seen it as we've discussed on Scream of Celica. Sometimes folk just come in and get it, Kev. Do you know what I mean? And even though it's not been a successful season, I wonder, just seeing him sitting wearing the Celtic top to do his streaming, I thought, that's quality, big man. I like that. And maybe you are getting it. And I certainly believe that, there's no way you have the CV he does as a player if you're not good enough to play, SPL and be at a club like Celtic in Europe. No way. And I think he deserves out of everyone. As I say, it's not been through a lack of effort that he's not done well. He's not treated this like, in my opinion anyway, he has not treated this like, I'm from AC Milan, this is going to be a cakewalk. I think you look at him and you can't deny, he's had a few stinkers, absolutely, but never through a lack of effort and desire. And, that's all you can ask for sometimes when the team's playing so badly is, can you count on these guys to at least give their all? And I think it's refreshing that a loan signing from AC Milan, who's Uruguayan, no ties, no, Celtic mindedness that we all talk about. And yet, for me, he's always got it and he's gave his all, albeit there has been poor performances in amongst the good ones. But if we feel we can get him on loan again next year, that would be a no-brainer, in my opinion. And the El Yunusi one, I think you make a great case for. I think you're right. When you look at the numbers, like I said, 15 goals, in a team that's not playing that well. How many of the games has he started? When I look at, you say he's played 40 games this season, 45 games. How many has he started? 21, 22 games? I don't know, 25. Not a lot. I mean, you start looking at that on, when you see the starts and then the appearances and brackets of subs and then the goals column next to it, those, it starts looking quite impressive. So that is an argument for Moy, definitely. And I take that on board.
Glasgow Rebel comes into the comments via YouTube and says Laxalt will be part of the Ayer deal. I think again that's a joined up way of thinking that if Ayer is going to go to AC Milan, then we might get Laxalt for Ayer Laxalt plus some cash, which the way it might work.
Sound logic, isn't it? I mean, I don't think it's. Obviously we've been talking about ifs, buts, and been criticised for that or whatever earlier, Kev, but I think you need to remember that comment coming in there is a perfect if and but comment, but that's what we've got to do. That's what we love chatting about football about. That's what makes football so easy to talk about, and there's definitely reasoning behind that comment that just came in there. I didn't catch their name, but there's definitely good reasoning behind that, because the one club Ayer's been mostly linked with this season is Milan. Now, that's who Laxalt's at. Would it worry you though? So I'm taking your job here. I'm not.
No. Hey, you're going to have it permanently after this podcast.
No. Thanks.
My P45's in an email. I'm going to get announced to the stock exchange tomorrow morning that I've been removed for the Monday Club for talking pitch.
I was just, would you be concerned, right, if Laxalt's a make weight in the deal? Would you be concerned if you then look at how much we sell Ayer for? And we're going to do this anyway, right? We're going to look at the value and we're going to analyse how much he goes to, say, if he goes to Milan, we're going to say, did we get good bang for our buck there? My worry is on Laxalt's part, that if he is any part of this deal, we're going to go, oh, well, that's brought down the value of Ayer. Whereas we don't know the ins and outs of the negotiation. It might be, say it's 15 million euros, right? They've bid that and we say we want Laxalt for a year as well on top of it. And we get it. But my worry is the perception might be, we could have got 20 million for him, but we've instead opted for Laxalt as a make weight in the deal on loan. or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And it gets looked on as a negative valuation of the player. Do you know what I mean?
The market is absolutely dead, and the money that we were going to get for any of our players is no longer there. So the club will have a look at it. If they're going to get 8, 9, 10 million pound plus Laxalt for Ayer, they'll go, we're taking that deal for a player that we signed for 750 grand or something like that. Whatever we got him from Norway. So they're taking that deal because they're getting a player that they would have to spend 5, 6 million pound on. They don't need to outlay that money for a position that needs covered. So and they're getting a Uruguayan international as well for that. So they're taking that deal. It's the same with Moy. They're getting a Norwegian internationalist who's done well in the 2 seasons that he's been here for £5 million. What they'll be looking at as well is what can you get for £5 million on the market? And they go, well, we've got a player who knows the city. He doesn't need a sat-nav, knows way around Glasgow. Has been here for 2 years and has actually gave us a decent return. So they might go, that's a decent deal as well.
And I think, see, just with Moy as well, just to to go back to the James Forrest stuff, of course he's frustrated at times, but that's what these type of players are going to do. We had a brilliant chat about Samaras last Tuesday and how often he frustrated. But the fact is, we knew in the big games we were better for having him because he's capable of a goal. Our last big game, who was it that scored the header? It was El Yunusi who popped up in that game. Of course he's frustrated at other times, but I mean, your logic for the El Yunusi one definitely weighs up. I'm already willing to change my mind on that. Bring him in. Saw that.
As producer Paul's put in the comments, 5 million is like Ayeti or a Barkas. So if that's what 5 million gets you, and you've got a deal to sign Moy for 5 million, who's been vastly more impressive than Ayeti and Barkas, then
kind of take it.
It's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. I agree with that. Now, we've spoke about Eddie Howe. We've spoke about Dominic McKay coming in. I've made an absolute arse of myself today, but here we go. I'm willing to take that on the chin. I'm willing to have a bad Monday, man. I'm willing to have a bad Monday. The draw yesterday sends us for a Glasgow derby. I'm just going to say that because I ken it annoys thousands and thousands of folk. So we've got a Glasgow derby at Ibrox in the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
Now, if we're going to make it 5 Scottish Cups in a row, is there any better place to actually go and confirm ourselves as favourites for the tournament?
No, absolutely not. And to me, I said it on Saturday, if Howe is announced, not about the Dominic McKay one so much, just because that's non-football, but if Howe gets announced as manager before then, and this was before the draw, I said this, bear in mind, I said we become favourites for the Scottish Cup because it's all about the pendulum swinging, right? And now, don't be wrong, we could have been so far out of sight the pendulum no longer existed, but we've came back to the pendulum, right? So that's how we operate right now. That pendulum's with them right now because we've had our worst season we could ever imagine ever. But imagine Eddie Howe's announced, right, with the season still there to be had for the Scottish Cup, right? We go there and beat them. That pendulum would swing so far to Celtic, it's unbelievable. So in our worst season in over a decade, we might still win the Scottish Cup having beat them on their own patch, and we've now got a guy coveted by England in charge, going ahead to the next season, and we've got no more Lawwell, no more Lennon, no more Nick Hammond. But we've got Dom McKay from SRU, we've got the director of football the club wanted, either from Man City or the guy that was Howe's choosing, or both, and you've got Eddie Howe in the dugout, ahead of a crack at the Champions League, and we've still got one of our trophies, and it's a record-making 5th Scottish Cup in a row, and that's having stuffed them in their own park when we had our worst season ever and they've had their best one. They only won 1 trophy out of 9 by then. When all this Messiah talk would then get laughed at, because people look at the stats, they look at the numbers, and the numbers don't become as impressive. And I can accept, by the way, they are miles ahead of us this year and have been all season. All I'm saying is, in the fickle nature, the of the Glasgow rivalry, it doesn't take off in much for that pendulum to swing. And Eddie Howe's going to give us a lift that you wouldn't believe. If he was to mastermind something there in his first 2 weeks in the job, bring it on, big man. Do you know what I mean? Because that would be a huge swing. The thing is, as well, it's a bit of a free hit, because if we don't, that's kind of just going in tandem with how the seasons went. Do you know what I mean? We've kind of written this season off anyway. The pressure's on them in that one, not us.
Definitely. As you talk about the pendulum, and the pendulum has swung. The pressure's all on them to actually beat us. And when the draw came out yesterday, I kind of laughed, because I would take anybody. You always want a home draw in the Scottish Cup. You always want a home draw in any cup competition. But then you're going, stuff it. Let's go there. Let's go there and beat them. We've had our worst season in 20 years. Let's go.
Oh, by a mile.
We've got nothing to lose. There's no pressures on us whatsoever. And I saw a lot of chat with players going, "I've won it for Scott Brown, won it for us, won it for this and that." I'm like that. No, the players won't win it for us. They'll do what they want to do for themselves. And they might, appointing Eddie Howe might actually give us that buzz that we'd actually need to go to Ibrox and win that game. Go there and beat them. Get it sorted. For me, that'll be great. But as long as we didn't actually, just had a wee visitor there, poking at me. Go there and win. Sort it out. Let's go there and do it. I'm no fearing gone there. Why should I fear gone there?
No.
You're talking about a team I support who thinks it's great to set fireworks off in the daylight. Come on, let's go there and get them spanked. Let's get them sorted. Get them sorted out. Right. I've been too positive on that point. So right. I think we'll call it a day there, Russell.
Nice one, my man.
And we'll see you all back here at 6:30 tomorrow night for Scream of Celica.
Yes,
all right.
Mate. Looking forward to it, my man.
No problem. See you all later, lads, and didn't be arses like me. Cheers.